Welcome. I am Becky Malone, Environmental Policy Program Manager for the Planning Department, and I will be helping to facilitate today's scoping meeting. Joining me today to discuss the project and to describe the environmental review process are Heidi Von Blum, Interim Planning Director, Scott Sandell, Parks Designer, and Jordan Moore, Senior Environmental Planner. Next slide. We are on the webinar version of Zoom today, so all participants have been muted. At the end of the presentation, if you wish to provide a comment, there's no need to use the raise hand or Q&A function. You can just type your first and last name into the chat and we will call on the interested speakers in the order in which we've received your name at the end of the presentation. And after saying that, it is totally okay to use the raise hand function. I meant to change that. At any time, if you'd like to share a comment, please feel free to do so via the chat box. And with that, I'll pass it over to the Interim Planning Director, Heidi Von Blum, who will give an introduction / overview for today's scoping meeting.
Thank you for the introduction, Becky, and good afternoon and welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us and spending your afternoon with us. I am pleased to be introducing this scoping meeting for what we've called Anza Natural. As you'll hear more about in this afternoon's meeting, Anza Natural would expand existing wetlands in Anza Cove to include additional habitat, including lower, middle, and upper marshes, mudflats, oyster beds, and open water. It would also add native coastal scrub, dunes, and other native plants to upland areas of the cove, creating a natural setting that visitors will be able to walk through and enjoy. This modified plan is intended to increase not only opportunities for expanded wetlands, but also for safe and enjoyable coastal access for all residents throughout our city. These expanded wetland areas not only would improve our city's biodiversity, but would also provide an additional important nature-based solution to help the city prepare for sea level rise, in line with our recently adopted Climate Resilient SD plan. This plan also provides new opportunities to acknowledge the Kumeyaay and Indigenous peoples and their relationship to Northwest Mission Bay, and we look forward to continuing coordination with our tribal partners as we further develop this plan. Again, I want to thank all of you for joining us this afternoon, and we look forward to hearing your comments during not just today's meeting, but as we continue throughout the process to refine the amendment to the Mission Bay Park Master Plan. Today is not the end of the public process, but rather just the beginning, and we look forward to continuing to hear from you on how we can improve the plan, as well as the potential environmental impacts to be addressed in the upcoming Environmental Impact Report, which is the primary purpose of today's meeting. This afternoon's presentation will follow the outline that you see on this slide. First, Scott Sandell, who will be managing the project for the Anza Cove Natural, we'll give a short description of the project site and go over features of Anza Natural, the city's preferred plan alternative for the Anza Cove Amendment to the Mission Bay Park Master Plan. And then Jordan Moore, our environmental planner, will give an overview of the environmental review process, discuss the purpose of this scoping meeting, and explain how you can specifically provide comments to help guide the preparation of the Environmental Impact Report. With that, I will turn it over to Scott. Thanks, Scott.
Scott, you're on mute.
Thanks so much. If you could hit the next slide, that'd be great. The proposed project is located in the northeast corner of Mission Bay Park in the city of San Diego. This slide shows some of the existing uses on a regional level throughout Mission Bay Park, such as the regional parkland, camping, multi-use fields, golf, etc. Next slide. The project area encompasses the northeast corner of Mission Bay Park in the city of San Diego, as you can see here in this aerial image. Next paragraph, next slide. This slide contains the approved master plan land uses from the Mission Bay Parks Master Plan. This is what we're building off of. In the current master plan, the area where campland is located is designated as an extension of the preserve. Our study area incorporates all of these areas, and we're focusing on the special study area for revitalization in the plan now called Anza Natural. Next slide. The existing land uses map may be familiar to attendees of the previous NLP meeting that was held in June of 2018. Next slide. The proposed project area includes a Kendall Frost Marsh Preserve, Northern Wildlife Preserve. It includes campland in the bay, west of Rhodes Creek, east of the creek, and north of Mission Bay Drive, the Mission Bay Tennis Center, the athletic fields, the San Diego Boat and Ski Club, and the golf course. And south of Mission Bay Drive, the enclosed Anza Cove Mobile Home Park, Anza Cove Park, Mission Bay RV Resort, and the cove itself with swimming and beach. The area was formerly known as the Anza Special Study Area as designated in the Mission Bay Park Master Plan. Next slide. The Mission Bay Park Committee recommended the revised alternative 2 for the basis of the amendment to the Mission Bay Park Master Plan for the program EIR, which you can see here. Next slide. And a bit more history. This concept plan was developed and released in 2018 to reflect the Mission Bay Parks Committee recommendation. We had a number of meetings, many of which you have participated in it, to determine the desired recreational uses in anticipation of Anza. And since the Supplemental Environmental Project, the SEP, last year we were allowed the resources to study nature-based planning a bit further. And I'll now walk you through the special study area. Next slide. Let me briefly run you through the plan. I will start here at the west, and it's easier to see when the areas are enlarged. So if you can go to the next slide, that'd be great. The area where campland is located is designated as wetlands and upland habitats as an extension of the preserve, along with the small potential nature reserve nature education center directly across from the high school. Next slide. I'll briefly run through on this enlargement of the northern area uses and on the east. There will be a buffer and multi-use trail along Rose Creek on the west right side here. A feature of the plan is not only widening and greater buffers on the east side of Rose Creek, but also a channel that would allow wetlands to be fed into the cove and new wetlands that are proposed there. The tan color represents upland, such as coastal dunes and coastal sage scrub, and the dark olive color represents the wetland habitats from mud flats on the low side through low tidal marshes and up in elevation to upper tidal marshes. Active recreation uses such as tennis, little league, softball, soccer, aquatics, and golf could occur to be determined through a public process known as the General Development Process or the GDP process, as determined by Council Policy 600-33. The dark green represents regional park uses that include sand volleyball, picnicking, and other passive recreation uses. The pink color represents a 50-acre, low-cost visitor accommodation lease. And the dashed line represents the multi-use pathway and the bike pathway. Next, Jordan will discuss the environmental review process. Next slide.
Thank you, Scott. The California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, is a statute that requires state and local agencies to inform the public and decision makers about the potential significant environmental effects of a project. CEQA also encourages public involvement and input. An example is the scoping meeting we're having this afternoon. And you'll hear more about opportunities for public involvement at additional stages in the process in a later slide today. The notice of preparation is the beginning stage of the environmental review process. After the close of the NOP public review period, we will start preparation of the environmental document. Next. As described in the NOP, a program-level environmental impact report, or EIR, will be prepared for this project. The program EIR will identify potential impacts of the project, as well as any cumulative impacts that may result from the proposed project combined with other planned and reasonably foreseeable projects in the surrounding area. When any potential significant impacts are identified, the program EIR will provide mitigation measures, which are ways to avoid or reduce the potential environmental impacts. The program EIR will also evaluate a reasonable range of alternatives to the project through a comparative level of analysis as required by the CEQA statute. The purpose of the program EIR is also to foster public involvement. More details on public participation opportunities will be covered later in this presentation. The information in the EIR is used by the city's decision makers as part of the deliberative process in whether to approve or deny a project. However, it is important to note that the program EIR itself does not recommend approval or denial of project. Next. As I mentioned earlier, the notice of preparation is the very beginning of the environmental review process. The NOP that was distributed earlier this month contains a brief description of the project, defines the project area, and indicates where documents relating to the project can be found. The NOP is the process by which responsible agencies and other interested parties are notified that an EIR will be prepared. CEQA requires a 30-day review period, which for this particular project started on January 11th and will end on February 10th. Next. The purpose of today's scoping meeting is to gather public input on the scope of the environmental issues that should be covered in the program EIR. This slide provides the wide range of issues that may be covered in the EIR. If you think any issues outside of this list should be covered, or if you have specifics regarding these issue topics that you would like to see addressed in the program EIR, please submit a comment to us. We will use the written comments gathered throughout the NOP public review period to develop the scope and content of the program EIR. We ask that comments please focus on the environmental issues or impacts you believe need to be thoroughly analyzed in the EIR. After the draft EIR is prepared, there will also be an additional opportunity for public review and comment. Next. CEQA requires a discussion of alternatives in the EIR. The EIR prepared for this project will analyze whether any of the alternatives would avoid or substantially lessen any of the significant effects of the project identified in the EIR, while also meeting the project objectives. An EIR must include a discussion of the no project alternative to assess the effects of approving the project versus the effects of not approving the project. The alternatives analysis must also identify an environmentally superior alternative. Next. This slide shows the overview of the EIR process and the opportunities where you will be able to participate. The first step in preparing an EIR is to define the project, in this case, the Anza Natural. Next, the city prepares and distributes a notice of preparation, which for this project was distributed on January 11th. Today's meeting is the scoping meeting, and after receiving your input, the city will start the preparation of the draft EIR. Public review of the draft EIR will occur for 45 days, which is the second formal opportunity for public comment. After public review of the draft EIR, the city will prepare the final EIR, which will include a response to any comments received during the draft EIR commenting period. Finally, the Anza Natural will be presented at public hearings before the Mission Bay Park Committee, Park and Recreation Board, Planning Commission, and eventually to City Council and then Coastal Commission. These hearings will provide additional formal opportunities for public comment. Next. There is a website for the Anza, the link to which you can see on this slide here. And at the website, you can find information about the project, as well as the overall schedule, links to the NOP, this presentation, and other information from past workshops. We will continue to update this webpage as the project progresses. Next. There are two ways to provide comments during the notice of preparation period. You can email comments to planningceqa@sandiego.gov, shown on the slide here, or you can mail comments to the planning department at the address that we've included on this slide. To ensure that your comments are considered in the preparation of the EIR, please provide them by February 10th. And again, for today's meeting, if you'd like to state a comment, please type your first and last name into the chat box and we will unmute people to speak in the order that we receive. If you can please limit your comment to 1 or 2 minutes maximum, then we can make sure that we hear from as many people as possible today to collect feedback. And again, if you'd like to just share your comment in the chat box, but do not wish to speak, we will be downloading these comments, so please feel free to type your comments directly into the chat box as well. And I will now hand things back over to Heidi Bonblum to conclude our presentation and open up to comments.
Thank you so much, Jordan. And again, I just want to thank everybody that has joined us for your time this afternoon. As Jordan mentioned, please feel free to comment in the chat or raise your hand or type your name in the chat so that we can unmute you and you can provide your comments. Also, after this meeting, please remember you can still contact us and we encourage you to continue to do so. Please also visit our website to stay up to date on the progress of this planning effort and continue to stay in touch with us. While formal comments on the notice of preparation are due on February 10th, your comments and input on the overall plan will continue to be welcome throughout the entirety of the planning process. Additionally, when we release a public draft of the environmental impact report, we will have an additional formal comment period at that time. But again, your comments in the overall planning effort continue to be encouraged and welcome outside of those more formalized comment periods. We will now open it up to your comments, and Becky will be calling on individuals for your comments and our team will unmute you. Thank you.
Hello, yes. So I believe that the first one to request a comment was Jim Pugh. And so that is who I am going to unmute first. So Jim?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm Jim Pugh. I'm a conservation chair of the San Diego Audubon Society. And I hope that you'll fully analyze the rewild alternative as well as the alternative, as your preferred alternative, for a number of reasons. I don't think that the preferred alternative is really going to satisfy the goals of the project. The Mission Bay Master Plan makes a statement, something like that water quality should be the utmost consideration in the project. And we don't think that the water quality improvement from this proposal is nearly as good as the rewild proposal for a number of reasons. For wetlands to be really function at their maximum, they need seasonal inputs of fresh water. And fresh water going to the wetlands on the west of the project is blocked by the peninsula that sticks down from the former campland site. Fresh water going to the wetlands on the east side is blocked off by the two islands. And there is that channel to take water across, but that's going to be sedimented in very frequently. It's going to require continuous maintenance. And there'll be eelgrass trying to grow in the cove, but it'll have to be dredged out periodically because there'll be a high sediment inputs. And if you want to maintain it for recreation, it's going to be continuously maintained. And I also hope that you'll look at comparing the two projects over a period of time too. We'd like to know if the water quality value increases or decreases over time, and if the carbon sequestration value increases or decreases over time. And that should be in the, that analysis should be in the EIR, and it should compare the two configurations. And there's a problem, or the issue of the little beach. I know it's really nice to have the little beach next to the camping areas, but that's causing a lot of problems in the rest of the design. And people, citizens of San Diego, get in their cars or bicycles or bus to go to Mission Bay to recreate. And people that are camping in this area can do the same. Or the person that's running it can have a shuttle to take them around to the many different beach areas along the ocean or around Mission Bay. So the access to a beach should not drive the whole configuration of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next commenter is, the next person we'll be unmuting is Pamela Hetherington. Okay, Pamela, you should be
unmuted.
Yes, excellent.
Good afternoon. I am Pam Hetherington, Environmental Center of San Diego. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the NOP for the northeast corner of Mission Bay. You're getting closer, but you still have a ways to go. I'll second Jim Pugh's comments totally, but I also want to add the idea that once again, the city will close off public access to the island is a replay of the privatization of the Anza boot for the wealthy. As the State Lands Commission admonished you late last year on the tails of a lawsuit by the Coastal Commission to the current managers, the city is a trustee of legislatively granted public trust lands and is responsible for managing these lands in a manner that is consistent with the common law public trust doctrine and the terms of your legislative grant. What you have presented to date does not fall in line with your responsibility to the public's trust. To do so, you need to remove all but tent and yurt style camping on the proposed island. The focus of the island needs to be a nature, cultural, and educational center, low impact at that. Move the proposed RV camping to the back, downsize the golf course to accommodate the RVs. They are the only group not contributing to this great vision of the northeast corner of Mission Bay. Sea level rise must be accounted for in this design. The channel needs to be widened or the island eliminated to allow as much fresh water to enter and circulate in this area. Water quality has often been an afterthought in this section, with no potential protections for the Rose Creek watershed. You're close, but you're not there yet. Please be mindful that the land use in the northeast corner of Mission Bay will be a reflection on how seriously the city takes climate change and the public's right to the coastline. Thank you kindly.
Thanks much. Our next commenter will be Barry Homer, and it looks like we have about 20 more commenters, just to let you know. Okay, Barry, you should be able to talk now.
Unmute. I'm on. You can hear me? Hi, thank you. I'm Barry Homer. During our 30+ years of RVing across the United States and Canada, Campland and Mission Bay RV resorts have always stood out as gems, most unusual and welcoming. RVers come from across the United States to stay here. Our one-way drive from Texas is 1,500 miles. Canadian friends come 3,500 miles. Another comes every year from Syracuse, New York. Another from Maryland. We could go on and on. The point is, many campers travel long distances year after year, bypassing many nice resorts on the way, opting instead for extra time and expense to come to Campland and Mission Bay, which in turn pays revenue to the city of San Diego and brings income to local businesses. And don't forget the many locals and Californians who have been coming to these campgrounds for generations. RVing popularity is growing exponentially. Let's be sure to always have plenty of affordable camping in this corner of the bay. Thank you. Good.
Thanks much. Our next commenter is Christy Dunning. Give me 1 second. Okay, Christy, I think you should be able to talk now.
Thank you. I'm a regular swimmer in the bay, and I'm concerned about the water quality for everyone and everything who depends on it. I also volunteer with San Diego Audubon to restore the California least tern nesting areas and support the Rewild plan. We have an opportunity to mitigate some of the vast environmental damage that Mission Bay's wetlands have suffered since they were drained and reconfigured largely for human recreational use. This type of damage would never be allowed now, knowing what we know about how everything is linked together. But now we have a situation where endangered species struggle to survive with the little acreage that is left to them, and that acreage is regularly encroached upon by humans via land, air, and water. Human activity is making it difficult for them to survive. We have a responsibility to be the stewards of this amazing environment and can surely come up with solutions that can benefit the different species who rely on it for survival, in addition to making portions of it available for human recreation. Humans will also benefit from increasing the wetlands acreage by having better water quality, by anticipating sea level rise proactively instead of reactively, and by recognizing the benefits of carbon sequestration provided by the wetlands. Once a species is gone, it's gone. Human beings are not an endangered species. Let's keep that in mind. It's important to educate everyone about our interconnectedness with nature. I'm speaking today to implore you to add more acreage to the wetlands. This can be accomplished in a number of ways. For example, by removing the channel from Rose Creek to De Anza, moving more of these land uses into regional park land use. Also, the spit of land west of Rose Creek could shrink, and an island could be created further south in the bay for high tide use by birds. This island could also provide protection from bay traffic to the marsh. Let's work together to create a long-term sustainable vision in Mission Bay. Thank you.
Thank you. It looks like our next commenter is Julia Curry. Okay, Julia, you should be able to talk now.
Perfect, thank you. Hello everyone, my name is Julia Curry. I'm a current graduate student at USD and a lifelong Pacific Beach resident. I'd like to express appreciation for the city's interest and devotion to rehabilitating our essential wetland habitat at Mission Bay. But that being said, I would like to echo some comments that were made before and encourage implementation of a plan that aims to restore a good majority of the area to its natural state, preferably Rewild's wildest plan. Wetland coverage is urgent and pivotal to mitigating sea level rise that is due to happen within my lifetime. It'll also improve water quality, fight against further species extinction, and fall in line with the city's proposed climate action plan to restore 347 acres of salt marshland, further aiding carbon sequestration efforts to lessen the impacts of climate change. We have an amazing opportunity to transform Mission Bay Park into an educational, ecotourist hotspot with public access and Indigenous land acknowledgements, all while protecting our coastal residential and business properties. I envision times ahead where my future children and grandchildren will also have the chance to enjoy Mission Bay as all of us have. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next commenter is Rebecca Schwartz-Lesberg. Okay, Rebecca, you should be able to speak now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful, thank you. My name is Rebecca Schwartz-Lesberg. I'm the president of Coastal Policy Solutions. We're a small consulting firm. We work with nonprofits and government agencies to implement conservation projects. But perhaps more relevant here, I'm the former director of conservation for San Diego Audubon and the former project manager for Rewild Mission Bay from 2012 to 2017. So I wanted to first really thank you guys for the hard work on this and that very clear explanation of public input that's going to be coming up. I also wanted to applaud the continued planning for and commitment to restoring the existing campland site to salt marsh. That's an incredibly important piece of this project. So thank you for continuing to include that. I was also very happy to see, really for the first time in any of these alternatives that are coming from the city, some filling proposed in Anza Cove to expand habitat there. My comments are really echoing what you've heard from Jim Pugh, Pam Hetherington, Christy D, and Julia Curry. Their comments were wonderful, and mostly I'm going to be echoing that. A couple things that a couple specifics I wanted to mention is I would recommend the removal of that channel that's between Rose Creek and Anza Cove. That was actually analyzed during one of the Rewild preliminary alternatives, and found that it would, in addition to requiring significant maintenance, would not improve water quality in Anza Cove. And in fact, the bigger issue for Anza Cove water quality is the depth of the cove and the residence time of the water there. So really the best way to improve water quality there, in addition to BMPs or for local land uses, is to reduce its depth. That channel also fragments the habitat along that east side of Rose Creek, and habitat fragmentation is very tough on the environment. And I'm just looking at my notes here. My recommendation in terms of the wetlands in Anza Cove, those wetlands on the east side of Anza Cove are very cut off from the rest of the wetland habitat. So from an ecological point of view, we'd really be better off having more wetlands over on the sort of boot of Anza. And as a previous commenter said, pushing that low-cost accommodation, that pink bubble, further up into the regional parkland. As someone else mentioned, that sort of dune peninsula that's coming down into the existing campland site really would block that freshwater pulse from Rose Creek. So the recommendation would be to minimize or remove that peninsula, to move the visitor center to the east side of Rose Creek. And I had some questions, and I don't necessarily expect them to be answered here, but in terms of access to that pink island, if that channel is going to stay, wondering how, if we are assuming camping out there, how people are going to be getting all of their camping gear out there, if those are supposed to be walking or bike paths out to the island. And if they're not, if they're actually driving paths, then that kind of opens up a whole new can of worms. But again, my recommendation based on the results from the Rewild feasibility study is to actually remove that channel and push that, have one contiguous pink area, more contiguous habitat. And I would be remiss if I did not emphasize that the best thing to meet those water quality, public access, and climate resiliency goals would be to implement the wetlands restoration that's designed in the Rewild wildest alternative. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker will be Kurt Carlson, and that'll be followed by Elizabeth Van Cleef and then Heather Hinter. But right now I will work on getting, okay, Kurt, you are unmuted. Or you're allowed to unmute. Kurt Carlson?
Okay, how about now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, that's great. Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm Kurt Carlson. I am chairperson for the City of San Diego Municipal Golf Committee, and I'm representing all the thousands of golfers in San Diego. Mission Bay Golf Course has been a part of our community for over 63 years, and urge you to keep Mission Bay Golf Course as part of this transformation. The use of this area for parkland instead of the golf course would increase the general fund expenses by well over $15,000 per acre per year if it was turned into general parkland. We want to convey, important to you is to convey that it's the unique role of which Mission Bay Golf Course plays in affordable and accessible public golf throughout the city. Mission Bay Golf Course is a local treasure because of its practice facilities, unique layout, and holes which enable complete golfing experience. It's important to younger and older golfers because of its length and walkability, cannot be ignored as a healthy recreational activity. It provides a significant habitat, supportive of bird life, and we hope that it will soon be certified by the Audubon International as environmentally friendly. Mission Bay Golf Course is considered what they call an alternative golf course, which means that it's composed of many par 3s, par 4s, and can be played in only a couple of hours. It's a user-friendly in that you don't have to own an expensive set of clubs to play the course. You don't have to pay outrageous green fees for access and be an expert golfer to enjoy your round of golf. Alternative golf courses are on the rise throughout the country and are being built by more municipalities because of their unique social and recreational opportunities. Well, we don't have to build one, we've got one. Mission Bay Golf Course has served as a pipeline to the bigger public courses in the San Diego, like Balboa, Torrey Pines. And if you talk to any regular at Torrey Pines or Balboa, they will know someone that first learned to play golf at Mission Bay Golf Course. We encourage everyone to come out and see the over 900 students from the 12 different high schools throughout the city who use Mission Bay as an essential part of their practice and high school competitions. We are optimistic that the $12 million that will soon be invested in the Mission Bay Golf Course using allocated golf enterprise funds will replace the aging clubhouse and associated infrastructure with a more up-to-date and attractive facility. These improvements are expected to further enhance the experience of the revenues of the Mission Bay Golf Course. We encourage you to come out and see the ladies club that play regularly at Mission Bay. Mission Bay is the only night lit course in the city where kids can play after school in the winter. And it provides recreational opportunities to the citizens by providing a robust program for foot golf and disc golf. These are additional attractive and healthy recreational alternatives for kids after school. And then wrapping up, golf is currently thriving in the COVID world, unfortunately, but it is. It provides one of the only activities that can still go forward with proper social distancing. It's expected that most of the people who took up the game of golf during the peak COVID, they will remain golf enthusiasts, which translates into more and more people playing golf every year. The numbers support this. In July 21, there was an 89% increase in year-over-year revenue at Mission Bay. The first quarter of 2021 saw an increase of 8,000 rounds of golf over year. This was a 30% increase for the first quarter of 2021. July 1st, 20 was the start of the fiscal year, as we all know. So for the first quarter of 2021, Mission Bay generated almost $1 million in revenue compared to $700,000 in the year 2020. So in conclusion, when the time comes, Mission Bay Golf Committee, we urge everyone to voice your support of the Mission Bay Golf Course and the Anza Revitalization Plan and help us express how vital it is to providing affordable and accessible public golf and recreation for the citizens of San Diego. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And again, if you could please try to limit yourselves to 2 minutes, that would be great. I haven't been doing a great job of timing people. Our next speaker is Elizabeth Van Cleef, and she will be followed by Heather Hinter and then Chuck's Azus or Asus. So Elizabeth Van Cleef, you should be able to speak now.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth. I live in San Diego. I have 3 children and I own a local business. My overall comment regarding the site plan is that the site plan compared to the current landscape actually represents an extraordinary reduction to the public's access to the bay. Now more than ever in the pandemic, our citizens need safe, affordable outside access to the bay. And on any given day, there's 1,000 people enjoying the outdoors at Campland. The beach, the bay, trees, grass, sports, and swimming pools. And Campland estimates 400,000 people visit Campland for camping and public access every year. Turning these outdoor camping and recreation areas into marsh, in my opinion, is not going to attract the same 400,000 people to the bay. When you look at just the camping, the site plan is not really a relocation of camping, but a reduction of camping. The current estimate is that the camping reduction will be from 800 down to 500 campsites. And that's not counting the campsites that would have to be removed if the existing features like the open air music amphitheater, the dog park, the playground, skate park, and basketball courts are to be rebuilt within the new campground. And just looking at the beaches affected by the site plan, there are currently 4 beaches in Anza Cove. There's a football-sized beach in front of Campland, and then there's 3 beaches around Anza Cove. 2 of those beaches will be eliminated and not replaced. So if you've ever been to Campland Beach, it's easily the most popular beach by the bay. And after eliminating those 2 beaches in the new site plan, the remaining 2 beaches are those 2 inside the cove, and they have significant issues in the site plan. Those beaches have freeway noise, and the sand under the water is polluted by large chunks of concrete and not suitable for swimming unless that's removed. In addition, that area of the cove that the 2 only remaining beaches will be is the most polluted in terms of bacteria, and will continue to be polluted under the new site plan because Rose Creek runoff is being added directly into that swimming area, and additional marsh is being added into Anza Cove right next to the swimming area. The most recent bacteria report indicated that by far the #1 polluter of the water for people in terms of bacteria is avian fecal matter. So adding that marshland in half of the cove, in my opinion, appears to have the risk of adding significant additional bacteria to the water that's being suggested for the children to swim. So in conclusion, I would ask that you analyze a version of the plan that allows campland to stay, that allows that beach access for all of those people, and to evaluate improving the current marshlands in its current condition and increasing access to the current marshland. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Heather Hinter, and she will be followed by Chuck Asis and Michael Gelfand. And so here, let me bring up Heather. You should be allowed to unmute now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hello, I'm Heather Hinter. For the purposes of identification only, I'm the executive director of the UC San Diego Natural Reserve System, which manages the Kendall Frost Marsh. So I have 4 points. First of all, as you all know, wetlands provide many ecosystem services for the people of San Diego, and Kendall Frost Marsh is the last remaining 40 acres of original marsh in Mission Bay. Having original wetlands there and all the species they contain is critical to the success of any future wetlands restoration. But Kendall Frost Marsh is really suffering because it is cut off from Rose Creek, its historical source of fresh water and sediment. In this plan, the uplands on the former campland site may continue to prevent Rose Creek from flowing freely into the original marsh. Please consider using the former campland site for additional wetlands and channels for Rose Creek. In addition, I very much support an education interpretation center to increase public awareness and thus access. But the current placement on the former campland site is also a problem for the reasons I just stated. This facility should be in the regional parklands east of Rose Creek. The second point is we really need to see what's going to happen to this plan given predicted sea level rise. How many acres of wetlands will exist in 2050 or 2100? Will there be the additional 80 acres of wetlands as called for by the Regional Water Quality Control Board? Third, the city needs to really define what they mean by low-cost guest accommodation. For example, the South Carlsbad State Beach charges between $35 and $100 a night for camping. And four, to maximize access, the area where usage requires a fee, like the camping area, should be farther away from the coastline, and the area directly adjacent to the wetlands should be open to all, with boardwalks, bike trails, bird blinds, etc. The area adjacent to the wetlands should not require a fee for use. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Chuck Asis, followed by Michael Gelfand, and then Sri Kandhandai. So, Chuck, you should be able to talk now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Chuck Dunning, and I'm a volunteer with Rewild. I would like to take this opportunity to ask that low-cost visitor accommodations be more specifically defined in this plan and guarantee equitable access to all San Diegans, including disadvantaged communities and the Native American groups. I don't believe the current operation on the Anza Cove meets that goal. It is a full-service resort with amenities that equal or exceed those of the resort hotels currently on Mission Bay. The price of a bayfront campsite in the high season is as high as $500 a night, while resort hotels on the bay charge less than $400 a night for bayfront rooms in the high season. The affordable sites currently on the Anza Cove are dirt plots without water, electricity, or sewer hookups, and they begin at $60 per night and are located near the fence on Pacific Beach Drive. By comparison, the county campground in Oceanside charges $27 a night for a site, including those services. This revised plan with open beaches and a channel cutting through De Anza Point concern me that the current resort may be duplicated there. The beach needs to remain a public shared shoreline. Why not instead limit this area to group and tent camping? Because it has a much lower impact on the wetlands, the uplands, and the parklands than another mega resort. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Michael Gelfand, followed by Sri Kandhandai, and then followed by Megan Flaherty. Okay, Michael, you should be able to talk now.
Okay. I'm Michael Gelfand. I represent the management of Campland on the Bay and Mission Bay RV Park. I want to begin by saying that I really appreciate the work that you planners have done. I think this really is an interesting beginning of a planning effort that is, I think, a good compromise between what the Mission Bay Gateway Plan has proposed and what we have proposed compared to the wildest plan that Audubon has proposed. On Audubon's website related to this plan, they talk about several things which we agree with. One is to see that the EIR should study how this plan or its ultimate incarnation actually how sea level would affect it. We agree with that. We agree that the spit west of Rose Creek could be extend further south, etc. We agree that the interpretive center could be moved to, actually should be moved to the east side of Rose Creek so that, frankly, it'll be more accessible to the campers. We agree that low-cost visitor accommodation needs should be addressed and that tent camping and group camping should be included. There's been a lot of talk about wetland and the meeting of climate action goals, carbon sequestration, and water quality improvement. We think that those things should be studied in the EIR and quantified because, frankly, I don't think the amount of carbon sequestration created, even with the wildest plan, will be very significant. And frankly, without some sort of holding capacity over time, there won't be much of an impact on water quality improvement either. In terms of the channel from Rose Creek to De Anza, and the whole notion of moving camping north into what is now Mission Bay Golf Course, of course, there are tens of thousands of golfing enthusiasts who wouldn't want that to happen. From our perspective, the camping on the De Anza site represents a reutilization of the existing water, sewer, electric, gas, and other infrastructure that's there already and is the most sensible and sustainable way to go. And we think the Anza Natural Plan does a great job of doing that. So we like that plan. One of the things we don't like about the Anza Natural Plan is the call out for motorized watercraft. We think that the campers absolutely need access to motorized watercraft. That part of the bay would always be only 5 knots, and most likely in the future we're going to see more and more electric boats anyways. So we think motorized watercraft is an important thing that will not have much environmental impact and should certainly be studied in the plan. And finally, as several people mentioned, this plan takes us from over 800 campsites down to significantly less than 600. And we're not happy about that. We know our campers aren't happy about that. And we think that there should be room for a restaurant, a boat rental store, a small market, and public gathering spaces, either adjacent to or near the camping lease. With that, again, I want to thank you for the work you've done. I think it's really moving forward the potential for a compromise that everybody can get on board with.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Sri Kandhadai, followed by Megan Flaherty, and then Kristin Victor. Okay, Sri, you should be able to speak now.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, thank you so much for this opportunity to speak today. I'm Sri Kandhadai, and I'm a junior in high school, a volunteer Audubon advocate for eelgrass, and a volunteer docent in the Kendall Frost Marsh. Through these experiences, I've learned about the history of Mission Bay and the benefits of wetlands. Our wetlands are such important ecosystems, so I thank you for your work in protecting them and expanding them from the current mere 40 acres of the Kendall Frost Marsh. The more we expand wetlands, the better prepared we will be for climate change, which makes the resiliency of the expanded wetlands even more important. For my eelgrass advocacy, I learned about the importance of protecting our natural infrastructure like eelgrass beds and wetlands from sea level rise. Tidal wetlands are an extremely important resource for carbon sequestration, and because they can help with climate change and sea level rise, we need to protect them from climate change and sea level rise. My ask is that you consider how sea level rise affects your plan, especially how the wetlands might migrate under different estimates of sea level rise, and if they have enough room to do so. We need to make sure we can help the wetlands help us. Thank you again for hearing me.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Megan Flaherty, followed by Kristin Victor, and then Scott Chipman. And I think that Megan was listed as a San Diego Audubon, and there's 2 of them. So I'm going to allow both. So Megan, if you want to speak.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So my name is Megan Flaherty. I'm the Conservation Manager with the San Diego Audubon Society. I want to thank you guys for having this meeting today and allowing input into this really important plan that's going to decide the future for this part of Mission Bay that is obviously very near and dear in the hearts of many San Diego residents. So I also really appreciate all of the focus on nature-based solutions. We are facing a lot of environmental threats in the future, and wetlands have the potential to relieve and mitigate a lot of those along the coastline. The city of San Diego has committed to restoring 700 acres of tidal wetland by 2035 in its draft climate action plan. 700 acres is quite a lot when you think about how small the majority of our coastal tidal wetlands are, and Mission Bay really does provide the best possible area to help achieve this goal in a meaningful way. Currently, the city is missing many of its greenhouse gas reduction targets, and according to the city's own vulnerability assessment, they found that over 40% of our current salt marsh acreage is going to be underwater if we see a foot of sea level rise as is anticipated. Because of that, we really need to be prioritizing restoring the highest possible acreage of wetlands as possible. We need to show how there's going to be 80 acres of additional functional wetlands, as well as the existing 40 acres by 2100 with sea level rise. Another thing that's worth commenting on is the fact that today, only a little bit over 1% of the bay's initial acreage of wetlands remain. And so we've already significantly modified the hydrology, the natural environment, and so conversations around balanced use should really take these historic losses into account. As my colleagues have mentioned, the Anza Natural needs to explicitly show how sea level rise will impact various levels of the marsh, low, middle, high, and upland habitat. Each of those zones provide really important habitat for a variety of wildlife. And we need to also show how wetlands will migrate upwards as sea level rises. We need to focus on resilient recreation with no permanent structures or with movable structures to make sure that the island can be reclaimed by wetlands as sea level rises. We know that things are going to change significantly in this part of the bay with the coming impacts of climate change, and it's really up to us to be thinking with a vision now to make sure that our future generations can continue to enjoy this really special area. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kristin Victor, and she will be followed by Scott Chipman and then Sharon Batcher. And so, Kristin, you should be able to speak now.
Thank you, Rebecca. Good afternoon. I'm Kristin Victor. I'm a local Pacific Beach resident and a Pacific Beach business owner. I'm a regenerative strategist working within communities on regenerative practices. Previous speaker, Julia Curry, and many of the Mission Bay High School Eco Club students are mentees of our firm, Sustainability Matters, and they are our future generation. Thank you to all who are committed and supporting this long-term process of restoration planning. Gratefully, Mayor Gloria has committed 700 acres of increased wetlands, and the De Anza natural plan is a perfect opportunity for nature-based planning and climate impact responses. I asked for 3 focus areas to be addressed in the ongoing planning documentation process. 1, the Kumeyaay people. We must prioritize engagement of the Kumeyaay to lead in the planning and restoration of these areas, guided by their knowledge and wisdom in protecting the elements. Number 2, ecotourism. We must create an ecotourism economic plan to create prosperity with active local businesses engaged in this economic transformation of this area. And number 3, low-cost guest visitor accommodations must have regenerative touches on the lower and upper marsh areas with no motor vehicles near these areas, and they must serve the disadvantaged communities of our region. Thank you so much for this excellent step forward, and I look forward to continuing this process together.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Scott Chipman, followed by Sharon Batcher, and then Isabel Kaye. Scott, you should be able to unmute now.
Thank you. Scott Chipman, 46-year resident of Pacific Beach and planning group member. I've been promoting the Mission Bay Gateway Plan, a plan that was created by people in the community to serve both education, recreation, and the environment for, I think it's coming on 14 years now. And what we determined was that there needed to be a balanced plan between recreation, education, and the environment. We think the Mission Bay Gateway Plan has been that. And we also have on our website now a Mission Bay Gateway Natural Plan, which accommodates and includes many of the features that have been shown in this new Anza Natural Plan. It needs to be pointed out that there's over 2.5 million hours of recreation in institutionalized venues like golf, driving range, soccer, softball, boys and girls, tennis, pickleball, already occurring in the recreational area of Mission Bay in this Anza area. And that does not include any of the impromptu lawn games, volleyball, frisbee, jogging, skating, walking, picnicking that occurs, which are probably equal to or maybe even greater than the organized recreational venues. And this also does not include the camping and overnight stays that occur currently. So it's critically important that recreation be maintained. And the Mission Bay Gateway Natural Plan shows how existing recreational uses, as well as some of the features identified, such as the nature center and sand volleyball, excuse me, and adventure play that have been listed in the document. Also, it's important to recognize that there's other ways to increase marshland. For example, at the outfall of Tecolote Creek, there's probably the opportunity for 15 to 20 acres of marshland and habitat to be created there. And Tecolote Creek has historically been a major source of pollution in the bay. So I think it's important to consider that, where it would have virtually no impact or very little impact on recreation if there was marshland established at that end of the bay. It also needs to be recognized that just the construction alone of moving hundreds of thousands, if not millions of acres of soil, of trying to lower land mass to below sea level, there is a huge carbon footprint to that kind of activity, as well as impacts to the community, as hundreds of thousands of truckloads would need to be moved in order to get down to sea level rise in some of these areas. And it's estimated that if you have a neutral site where you're not moving soil or debris off-site, you're talking about 500,000 plus an acre. And if you don't have a neutral site, that could be approaching $700,000, $800,000 per acre And where does all that debris go? So there's lots of things to consider here. We think this is a great move forward. It's if we can keep existing recreation, not necessarily in its exact locations, but if we can keep all the existing venues and then add a couple such as a skateboard park and an amphitheater that are sorely needed in Mission Bay, I think this plan is a move in the right direction. And I have one process question. Several years ago, many of us thought that there was an EIR process already underway. I'm wondering, did that EIR process never get underway? Or is this supplanting that so that that one stops and this one starts? I think that's an important question to have answered. And I thank you for your time.
I'll just quickly jump in with some clarification that we did not release a draft environmental impact report for the prior proposal. And so the new draft environmental impact report that will be drafted based on comments we received during the scoping process will be based on the presentation presented to you here today and also identified within the notice of preparation.
Thank you, Heidi. Okay, our next speaker will be Sharon Batcher. And after Sharon will be Isabel Kaye and then Karen Zerk. Sharon, you should be able to speak now.
Thank you. The water quality in the cove is impacted and degraded by the pollution, the waste, chemicals, and plastic from the Rose Creek watershed. My question is, should the plan include methods to intercept the pollution before it reaches the cove? Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Isabel Kaye, followed by Karen Zerk and Leslie Honda. Isabel, you should be able to speak now.
Thank you. I believe I just did. Is that correct? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Thank you very much for this opportunity to comment. My name is Isabel Kaye. I'm the manager of the Kendall Frost Mission Bay Marsh Reserve. As a trustee agency for a property throughout California, including the Kendall Frost Reserve, the Natural Reserve System would have appreciated the opportunity to engage with the city during early consultation. This could have saved the city time and money, such as the mistake of including the camp plan spit that many have already spoken against. Secondly, I request that the concept of balance as a constraint on wetland restoration on the plan be removed. Balance among water-based recreation, leases to private entities, and natural habitat is a goal for the entirety of Mission Bay Park overall, not this northeast corner specifically, which has indeed been designated as the natural area within the bay under the parks within the park concept. The goal for this area is therefore maximal natural habitat restoration, which can include nature-based recreation and education, and activities such as kayaking, stand-up paddleboarding, bird watching, and even swimming and snorkeling if the water is sufficiently clean. And that is dependent largely on significant areas of wetland, including those upstream that could filter Rose Creek. If the entire area were restored to wetlands, it would still amount only to about 412 acres, or 10% of the original wetlands. Please study how best to return the wetland functions to the Kendall Frost Marsh and the Northern Wildlife Preserve that were interrupted when the area immediately adjacent to the current Kendall Frost field station was filled and privatized, formerly owned by the Frost family, and the city placed fill intended to be sludge drying beds, but were somehow converted into campland. Please discuss in particular Belding Savannah Sparrow, As sea level rises, the high marsh habitats on which this bird depends are pushed upslope. But if there's nowhere for them to go, they are lost from the system. Where will this habitat specifically be able to migrate to? The Northern Wildlife Preserve, which is mid to lower marsh, mudflat, and eelgrass, will be submerged initially. Please discuss how the city will protect this type of habitat on its property as sea level rises and how this complies with the multiple species conservation plan. This plan needs to show how the habitats and land use changes as sea levels rise in order to meet the requirements of the Regional Water Quality Control Board under the supplemental environmental project that was used in part to develop this plan. And we need to know whether the plan will be successful. That is, will it result in 80 additional acres for a total of 104 city-owned acres by 2100 for the sake of species and habitat protection? Kendall Frost Reserve is 16 acres currently. Northern Wildlife Preserve is currently approximately 24 acres of emergent or vegetated habitat. Thank you. Finally, if the plan retains the existing Anza infrastructure, please analyze the condition as leaks have been detected. And do you really want to build anything on 50-year-old utilities when the city has been replacing aged infrastructure due to failures throughout the city? Thank you.
Thank you. And I would also like to remind everyone that you can also just email us comments or type in comments to the comment boxes as we are starting to run lower on time. Our next speaker will be Karen Zerk, followed by Leslie Honda and Carl Rand. Okay, Karen, you should be able to speak now.
Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you for everybody who's been working so hard on this project. This is much better than the last plan under the former administration, but I still feel we have a way to go. So you've heard a lot of people speak about sea level rise. I not only work hard on Rose Creek, I live on Hornblende Street by Rose Creek in the upper salt marsh. That area is projected to flood. So with sea level rise in the next 50 to 100 years. The city has designated this a transit priority zone due to the proximity to the Balboa Avenue station. So I think it's in everyone's best interest to have as much marsh at the mouth of Rose Creek as we possibly can. To that end, I would like to ask you to analyze the potential impacts of sea level rise to the upstream schools and residential uses from moving the camping to the east side of the project area and including all the wetlands right there at the mouth of Rose Creek. So what I'm curious is what would the sea level rise projections look like with all this acreage of wetlands at the mouth of Rose Creek and the camping moved over to the east end of that area. I second Kristin Victor's comments about Kumeyaay leadership. I think that's critical in this area, and also all of Jim Pugh's comments. I also have questions about the project area, and perhaps that could be included in the draft EIR, whether the proposed island is going to be fortified or retreat strategy with sea level rise. And if it's part of the managed retreat strategy, how are we going to get all that infrastructure out of that island and out of all the waterfront camping areas as our sea level rises? And also I would be curious as to what the water quality in this area would be like, again, if the guest accommodations were moved to the east side of the project area and all runoff from Rose Creek, which is on the state of California's 303D list for impaired waterways, was filtered through salt marsh instead of just dumping into a cove. And one final comment, many researchers have studied in the past that the current configuration of Anza Cove has water circulation every 14 to 21 days. You can't blame all that on Rose Creek. You have jet skis dropping motor fluid in there. You have everybody going to the bathroom in there. And I would like to request that the city study the feces and the coliform based on DNA sequencing so we can determine once and for all how much of this pollution is bird related and how much is coming from human created sources. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Leslie Honda, followed by Carl Rand, and then Andrew Meyer. Leslie, you should be able to speak now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Leslie Honda with Honda Ornithology Lab and the San Diego Audubon Conservation Committee. I'm an ornithologist here in San Diego County who studies water birds, and I greatly appreciate this opportunity to speak today. I would like to support the comments of a lot of my colleagues who've already spoken. I had the distinct opportunity to study how water birds use Mission Bay from 2013 to 2015, where I learned that the Kendall Frost Marsh had the highest biodiversity of water birds with the most individuals of each species compared to other areas around Mission Bay. Water birds face continuing threats to habitat loss due to the ongoing destruction of wetlands, and many species will have a difficult time adjusting to the changes from climate change. Some birds that use Mission Bay only occur in wetland habitat, such as Ridgway's rail, Belding Savannah sparrow, red knot, and western sandpiper. And if the wetlands are gone, these birds will have no place to go. As we rarely get the opportunity to rehabilitate wetlands, I strongly urge you to consider expanding the amount of acres of wetlands in the plan to ensure that water birds have habitat in Mission Bay in the future. We should conserve the areas that the most selective water bird species use, and the most selective species such as the red knot and western sandpiper use this area of Mission Bay and would greatly benefit from a larger wetland area in the plan. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Carl Rand, followed by Andrew Meyer, and then Frank Landis. Okay, Carl, you should be able to speak now.
Great, I can. Thank you. Thank you for your work on this. And I have kind of another process question. Thank you for the slide that had the timeline that shows that we're going to have a lot of hearings, looks like over the next at least 18 months. But I'm wondering how the general development plan process, the one where a lot of these details are going to be worked out, how that fits in with the EIR timeline. And I don't know if there's a simple answer to that or not, but I'd appreciate if we could kind of get an idea of how the general development plan fits in with the EIR process. Thank you.
I'll just really quickly, I don't want to take up everybody's time, so I'll just quickly respond that we're also happy to follow up with you online for more refined questions about the process. But in general, the general development plans that implement our higher level planning efforts follow the completion of the master plan process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, our next speaker will be Andrew Meyer, followed by Frank Landis, and then Brian Nisnik. And so Andrew Meyer, I think that you are okay.
Hey, Becky.
Okay, there you are.
Sorry, my fault. Thank you very much. And thank you very much to all the hard work that the city and especially the planning department staff have put into this project for a long time. The plan is a great step forward for restoration of the habitats and access in this area that have changed substantially in the last 75 years. And thank you to all the folks in the Rewild Coalition who have been supporting and following this project, some of us for decades. I've got three kinds of comments. First about water quality, Anza Cove shoreline, the shoreline at Campland, Rose Creek, and all of Mission Bay are all listed as impaired water bodies by the state for combinations of pollutants, including bacteria. The EIR should look at how the plan will improve these areas, and one obvious way to fully improve these areas is to restore them to wetland. The EIR should also analyze increasing the wetland acreage by shrinking the island and removing the channel from Rose Creek to Anza, moving more of these land uses into the regional parkland use, in keeping with the Mission Bay Park Master Plan's emphasis on water quality improvement being the foremost consideration. For sea level rise resilience, the other important component that the Rewild Coalition has been emphasizing for several years, the island with camping land use needs to be smaller, and the EIR should showcase resilient recreation opportunities with no permanent structures and no motorized vehicle access. It should change over time as sea level rise reclaims this area in the coming century. The EIR also needs to show how 80 acres of additional functional wetlands remain after 2100 sea level rise predictions, as this is required by the Regional Water Quality Control Board funding in the SEP. The EIR needs to analyze the long-term maintenance needs for the hardened shorelines and channel to Anza Cove and their costs to the city of San Diego. And for access, the EIR should show how recreation has changed and improved at the scale of Mission Bay Regional Park, not at the scale of this particular small corner of the park. Some land uses like beaches are changed through this plan, but beaches are prevalent in the rest of our public park, and accessible marsh does not exist anywhere else. Low-cost visitor accommodation needs to be specifically allowing group and tent camping, and the lease should not include open beach, as the beach must remain a public shared shoreline. The EIR should include an ecotourism plan and a fiscal analysis of how they will reach their target, the city will reach their target demographics. And it should also include a traditional cultural property review and identify tribal cultural resources in the area, including in open water and plant and animal species. As a San Diego Audubon staff member, I encourage the city to include an analysis of the impacts of the plan on resident endangered species, including ridgeways, rails, and Belding savanna sparrows. And thanks very much for that long list of things. I'm excited to hear the answers and happy to work in partnership with the city. Take care.
Thank you. I wanted to say as we approach 5:30 that I don't think Zoom will kick us off at 5:30, but if it does, sorry. But we still have about 17 speakers that have asked to speak. So we do intend to stay for all comments. But, you know, in the event that like a webinar has a hard end, I don't think it does, but if it does, it's not us, guys. So our next speaker is Frank Landis, followed by Brian Nisnik, and then Dave Chan. Okay, Frank, you should be able to speak now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Hi, my name is Frank Landis, and I'm the Conservation Chair for the San Diego chapter of the California Native Plant Society. And in that role, I want to say we totally support what all the representatives from Audubon have said, as well as the representatives from Kendall Frost Marsh and the Friends of Rose Creek. The rest of what I'm going to say is more or less for myself because it's not dealing with issues that CNPS normally covers. I just wanted to point out three separate things that have basically popped into my email and into issues that have come up while I've been listening to this. The first one is that, and this question may have been answered because I had to step away from my computer, but the NOP lists this as a programmatic EIR, and the entire description lists this as a single project EIR. The difference for those of you who don't follow this stuff is that a programmatic EIR covers multiple projects, while a project EIR, of course, covers only one. And I wanted to find out which this is, whether it's actually programmatic or whether it's just there's a single big project for this, because it does make a huge difference in how the material is covered. Second issue is in my email box today, the County Development Services just sent out a new earthquake map, and it turns out that the Rose Canyon Fault runs right under the trolley tracks just east of the highway, so less than a mile from the marsh. And I wanted to point out that this is a problem because of this phenomenon called liquefaction. I'll briefly read from the USGS site. Liquefaction is a phenomenon where saturated sand and silt take on the characteristics of a liquid during an intense shaking of an earthquake. highest hazard areas are concentrated in regions of man-made landfill, especially fill that was placed many decades ago in areas that were once submerged bay floor. Liquefaction sucks people into the ground, and I'm not sure where the fill line goes on this project, because even back in the 1903, there was obviously fill on the site already. So one of the things I seriously hope you do is look at the earthquake danger and do good soil sampling under the entire project site and find out where the danger of liquefaction is, just to make sure that the area is safe. I think this includes particularly the beaches and also anything that was built on fill, which includes, I suppose, the current campland site. Also, because an earthquake can generate lateral forces up to 1 gravity, which I think I'll go into that in a second. I think we have to seriously think about what structures, if any, get built on the site, because the 1G lateral acceleration is the equivalent of standing a building on its side and seeing if it falls apart or not. I have no idea what RVs would do in the situation of a major earthquake, but that should be looked at too. Finally, as far as the spit goes, if we do need to do a soil, or someone needs to do a soil sampling, not just for the liquefaction hazard and earthquake hazard, but also for any toxics hazard, especially if the infrastructure under that site is leaking. Given how much land change is already going to be in even in this plan, I think we need to know that that's not going to require serious remediation. Anyway, I think depending on the earthquake risk, it may turn out that the wildest plan is best, not just for all the environmental issues, not just for carbon sequestration, but just to keep people out of harm's way. So I'll end my comments there, and put a lot in the letter. Thank you very much for holding this hearing.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Brian Nisnik, followed by Dave Chan, and then Brian. Okay, Brian Nisnik, you should be able to speak now.
Okay, can you hear me, Becky?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Hi, I'm Brian Nisnik. I'm representing the San Diego Mission Bay Boat and Ski Club and our nearly 300 local family members that take advantage of our club, our programs, and our clinics. We are strong supporters of a healthy Mission Bay and have been responsible environmental stewards of our property along Rose Creek, and a responsible leaseholder with the city for over 57 years. We're in favor of the project goals listed on the planning department website, specifically expanding the wetlands, creating an iconic recreation destination, providing the best land use, and identifying a mix of uses. However, we are not in favor of the specific implementation of those goals as listed in the NOP, specifically on page 5 under vehicular access. We do not agree to the following stated intentions of the existing parking lots and drive to Mission Bay Golf Course and San Diego Mission Bay Boat and Ski Club will be removed. This action would kill our club and our programs and clinics that we've been providing to the local community for many decades. Alternatively, we'd like to stay in place in the Rose Creek location and expand our partnership with the city to achieve the goals of this project. We would want to be part of the Anza Natural Plan rather than being eliminated by it. We seek to continue serving our membership in the local communities with unique programs and clinics, and also contribute both funding and manpower of our membership to transform our current property to better meet the goals of the city. We request an opportunity to meet with the city planning department at the soonest time possible to explore ways in which we can develop specific plans that would both achieve the city's goals and preserve our club and its programs for the community at the same time. Thank you very much for the great work you're doing, and we look forward to continuing our discussion.
Thank you. Our next commenter will be Dave Chan, followed by Kareem Al-Kahifaji, and followed by Ann Winder-Steed. Okay, Dave, you should be allowed to talk now. Dave Chan?
Hello.
There. Now we can hear you.
Hear me? Sorry. I'm a lifetime San Diego residents and small business owners, and the expansion of the trailer park there, campgrounds should be approved. But we would also like, as a member of the roller skating community, no one has stood up for the roller skating community, as in the putting it, not a skate park, but a flat area for us roller skaters to do dance skating in. And we don't need that big of an area, but flat and smooth would be nice. And pretty much that what rounds it up here.
Thank you, Dave. Our next speaker will be Kareem Al-Kahafaji, followed by Ann Winder-Steed, and then Lucero Sanchez. Kareem, you should be able to speak now.
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Excellent. Hi, this is Kareem Al-Kafaji. I'm a resident and homeowner here on Crown Point, so very near the project site. My kids go to Mission Bay and PBMS, so we're always in and around the bay and biking around the area. And I think, I would like to speak out and ask that there's, this plan should maximize the amount of wetland area. We have a ton of amazing recreational opportunities all around the bay. The thing that we don't have a lot of in the bay is places for wildlife and natural areas, and specifically salt marsh. So I'd love to see the plan maximize the amount of salt marsh that there is. And in keeping with that spirit of wildlife protection and maximizing natural habitat, I think explaining how that's going to adapt to sea level rise and providing opportunities for upland migration of the wetlands as the sea level rise is going to be equally important to make sure that it's not just a transient thing, but it's here for my children and future generations to enjoy. And I think low intensity recreational and programmatic opportunities are sort of in keeping with that character. And I'd like to see opportunities for group and tent-based camping, not just RV-centric camping. My daughter's in the Scouts. We did a long 11-mile canoe trip around the bay, but then they had to go camp in Balboa Park because there just weren't opportunities for that in the local environment. So I think tent and group camping is certainly in keeping with the characteristics of keeping it as a natural area. I'd also like to see no motorized access in the area. We live on Sail Bay. It's relatively calm, but there's almost nowhere in the bay that's free of motorized vehicles that one can recreate. And I think that would be an important piece for this area there. I'm sure I have more to say, but I'll stop it there so that others can have their say, and look forward to commenting on the plan.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Ann Winder-Steed, followed by Lucero Sanchez, and then Pat Heron. Okay, Ann, you should be able to unmute now.
Okay, I believe I have.
Yes.
Okay, terrific. So thank you for letting me speak tonight. This is the first time I've commented on city plans for things, but I thought it was very, very important that I do so. I'm a volunteer with San Diego Audubon in a couple of capacities, and one of those is as a docent at Kendall Frost Marsh. And I've learned quite a bit from my time doing that. And it's been fascinating. And I believe I personally would like to see more wetlands be brought into the plan. And I think that would be a tremendous benefit for the area. One of the things I've observed from my time as a docent at Kendall Frost Marsh is the folks that are coming into the new Wander the Wetlands program is the opening eyes for people to see what those wetlands do for us, and more of it will be better. The ecotourism that could be introduced, photographers spend a bunch of money on being able to take pictures of birds and the areas and the wildlife in general. Not only that, but what more wetlands would do from improving water quality in general, and having continuous wetlands is important. Moving the activities and the recreation that isn't wetland specific moving those back and away from the wetlands, I think is kind of a logical conclusion. And just because wetlands can't go just anywhere. They kind of, by definition, need to be where they are. So, as well as sea level rise, that's a concern, and how the plan will address sea level rise over time. 80 extra acres is better than nothing, but is it enough to address what's going to be happening as we progress into the future? So thank you again for allowing me to speak, and go more wetlands. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Lucero Sanchez, followed by Pat Heron, and then Glo Hinson. Okay, Lucero, you should be able to speak now.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Lucero Sanchez with San Diego Coastkeeper, an environmental nonprofit here in San Diego, and a member of the Rewild Coalition. First off, thank you very much for this opportunity to weigh in on such an important plan. Mission Bay has long been a topic of discussion when it comes to water quality. As Andrew mentioned earlier, these areas are listed as impaired waterways by the state. Often we find advisories and closures that prevent all of the aforementioned recreation due to the pollution created mostly by man, such as trash, cigarette butts, automobile fluids, heavy metals, and more. The EIR should include water quality impacts from camping and other parkland uses and include a plan to address them within the land uses. Improving water quality should be a priority, and a great way of doing this is by increasing the wetland acreage by shrinking the island and removing the channel from Rose Creek to the Anza, moving more of these land uses into regional parkland use. San Diego must also consider sea level rise predictions and climate resilience and ensure any infrastructure be of minimal impact and accessible to all. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Pat Heron, followed by Glo Hinson, and then Joanna Hurst. Pat, you should be able to talk now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay. My name is Pat Heron. I wanted to thank the staff and planners and everyone who worked so hard on this project. I want to say that I absolutely support Jim Hugh and Christy D and Pam Hetherington and Isabel Kaye in their comments. It is crucial that we maximize wetlands in the area. I've lived here my entire life, and I have seen the numbers and different species of the animals that we have in the city just go way down, and it's just heartbreaking. The entire world is in a crisis as far as losing species. We lose, I don't know, countless species every single day. And it's so important that we take care of them. We have not even included planning for anything like that for so many years. And so we have already lost so much. And these are natural treasures that we cannot ever, ever replace. I also wanted to comment that any lease should never include open beach. It must remain a public shared shoreline. We have a culture in California. Our beaches are public. They're not privatized. And we also, like I say, we have not accounted for wildlife in our wild places in our planning for so many years. Only 1% of our wetlands are left. So anyway, we can increase those. The wetlands is crucial. there was a gentleman that commented about how it wouldn't matter if motorized boats were permitted. That is not the case. That there should be only non-motorized boats, and the vehicles should be prohibited as well. Noises and things like that have a huge environmental impact on wildlife. Creatures will abandon their nests. They will stop reproducing at all just because of excess sound. And as far as wetlands being, well, it's not too good for carbon sequestration. Wetlands are one of the most important ways to do carbon sequestration, and that can have a huge effect on helping us meet our climate action goals. As far as ecotourism and things are concerned, that would be great. You have no idea how many just birders come from not just miles around, but all over the world. We are an ecological hotspot, a biodiversity hotspot, meaning that we have more diverse species in San Diego County than anywhere else in the country, anywhere. And we're coming late to the process, but we need to do what we can to immediately preserve all of them. And as far as the balancing kind of thing, I totally agree that there should be no balancing. We should maximize the nature part of it. People can have golf courses and camping stuff and whatever, anywhere in this city. We can only have, a tiny little thing of wetlands, and that's it. It can't go anywhere else. And after all this time, it's so important. And I totally support the rewild concept. And also, another last important thing that we need to take into consideration is habitat fragmentation. When you have a little fragment here and a little fragment there, you would think that because it's fairly close together, that species would cross back and forth and it wouldn't be a problem. Species are not like that. Some are too shy. Some, only need this kind of tree. So it's very important that we not break up their habitat. And thank you for letting us comment on things. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Joanna Hurst, followed by Caleb Shimkey, and then Stephen Mikhailovich. So Joanna, you should be able to unmute now.
There we go.
Excellent.
Hi there. I serve on the board of the Pacific Beach Tennis Club, and I've been in conversation with Scott Sandell over the last year or so. And one of the things I have recognized as a board member is that it is our responsibility to act responsibly in planning for the future of our club and our community. We have had close to 100,000 recreational hours take place of tennis and pickleball at our facility in the last 12 months. And it's very important to us to be able to take a close look at the sequence of events that you have quickly outlined at the very beginning today of who the decision makers are going to be and what the timing is likely to be as far as finally getting to a generalized development plan that will actually show what might happen to recreational land uses as they compare and contrast to the marshland and other kinds of environmental goals that have been so heavily mentioned today. So one thing I'm wondering is, I believe it was mentioned to me that the city might be hiring or bringing in a consultant to help develop the alternative plans that are going to be generated out of this process. And I wanted to find out if A, if that's true, and then B, who that consultant might be, and then 3, how I could get a copy of those slides you were showing, which clarified all the decision-making process and timing and groups.
I'm just going to quickly jump in. Again, I don't want to take anybody's time, but we will be making available the presentation as well as a recording of this meeting available on our website.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Well, Heidi, though, can you speak at all? Is there a consultant who's being brought in as a part of the next step in the generation of alternatives?
We will be engaging a consultant, and we're working on developing that scope of work right now. I do want to move on to the next speaker so that we give everybody an opportunity to comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Caleb Shimkey, followed by Stephen Mikhailovich, and then Mark Sullivan. Caleb, you should be able to unmute now.
Hello,
Yes,
my
we
name is
can hear you.
Caleb. Yeah, I'm a 21-year-old UCSD graduate, and I would just like to voice my support for the more extensive rewild plan for wetland expansion. I'm an avid tent camper, but I would like to highlight that we need to have a restorative and sustainable approach to providing camping and other recreation activities. And the loss of wildlife habitat and the deterioration of water quality that we're seeing, especially at this crucial location near the Rose Creek Inlet, in my opinion, it makes the experience outdoors in Mission Bay worse and makes it more difficult for us to share the beauty of our wetlands and all the endemic species that come with it to the public and to all the future generations. So thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Stephen Mikhailovich, followed by Mark Sullivan, and then Cynthia. And Stephen, you can unmute now.
Yeah, hello. Just had a few questions. I hope you can answer them. My name is Steve Mihailovich. I'm from PB Monthly Magazine. Prior to this NOP and upcoming EIR, 3 plans had been developed and were being considered for the Anza revitalization, SD Autobahns Rewild, MB Gateway, and the city's own initial plan. What happens to them in light of the EIR? Will they be considered as the alternatives as mentioned? Will that previous work be incorporated into the EIR, and how? Will the city be presenting the draft EIR to interested civic and nonprofit groups once it's completed? And while specific uses will be fleshed out in the general development plan, is the allotment of the land for recreation, accommodation, and natural states in the map considered final during the EIR? What is the name of that map, official name of that map? Who produced that map and based on what? Thank you.
Yes, so we will not be able to really answer questions right now because we're trying to take as many comments as possible. We were intending to end this meeting at 5:30 and it's gone over already. We will be continuing on with our next commenter, and that is Cynthia, yeah, it looks like it's Cynthia, followed by Deborah Knight, and then Nancy Ewan. Cynthia? Yeah, you can unmute.
Yes,
now.
can you hear me
Okay.
now?
Yes.
Okay, so my my comment is more of a recreational comment. I've noticed for many years, and with many old school skaters as well, we've been trying to find somewhere local in San Diego for a roller skate court, and other cities do have them, Venice Beach, All Entertainment, and so on. And I noticed Campland has a large area, and I know they have skateboarding, they have other recreational activities, but for children and family to get together and find a designated spot just to be in that specific area, not to go out and try to find an area to skate, I really recommend that they should put one in. It brings families together, it helps them mentally, physically, emotionally. They're in the same area where they camp. It'll bring a lot of tourists in, brings business to San Diego. This is very overdue for San Diego, and it's a big cry out for all these roller skaters to find somewhere to skate. And Campland, we all love Campland. So I'm hoping you guys consider and making one for us, so we won't be scattered. We'll be in the spot in San Diego, somewhere we can have fun and share our happiness, and also enjoy Campland and enjoy our city of San Diego as well. So please look into it. We are overdue. There's a lot of land in Campland. So I know you guys could squeeze us in, and we will be so much appreciated. It's many years. We're very overdue on this. So please take this in consideration. There's many skaters. It's still happening, it's still live. We're all one, and there's many families that are looking for spots, and we're getting kicked out in different areas because we can't enjoy our beaches. We can't enjoy the breeze, even gathering towards Mission Bay. This is our home. Campland is also our home. So if you could just consider our cry out and look into that for all of us, it's highly appreciated. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Our next speaker will be Mark Sullivan. Sorry, he dropped off my list for a second there, but Mark Sullivan will be next, followed by Deborah Knight and then Nancy Yuen. Okay, Mark, you should be allowed to unmute now.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, good evening. My name is Mark Sullivan. I am a resident here in Pacific Beach. I've been in Pacific Beach since 1987. And I'm also speaking on behalf of the Coastal Bay Girls Softball League. And to the extent that they've given me some proxy, the Mission Bay Boys Baseball League, who we share the Mission Bay Youth Athletic Fields with. And I just wanted to kind of put a voice out there for the silent masses of kids that don't know about these Zoom calls or don't know about the marshland and the environmental plans that looks like will have some impacts on our athletic fields. We have, as everyone knows, a shortage of athletic fields in San Diego as a whole, and in particular in our built out communities. Pacific Beach is one of those. The McAvoy fields there that we play on have been serving the community for many years. And we are very concerned with any impacts that this project might have. It looks like there's some plans to do some beachfront work along the back side of our fields, which would have some severe impacts on them. And so I just want to, again, kind of raise awareness of those impacts, and we'll be following the process and commenting along the way. Hopefully there's a way to reach the environmental goals along with maintaining those existing field uses. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Deborah Knight, followed by Nancy Yuen, and then Ryan Carlsgott. Deborah, you should be able to unmute now.
Yes, and sorry if you hear some screeching or lion roaring here. I have my 6-month-old grandson on my lap, and he is not enamored of waiting for dinner. So anyhow, my name is Deborah Knight. I'm the executive director of Friends of Rose Canyon. And Friends of Rose Canyon's mission is to protect, preserve, and restore Rose Canyon and the Rose Creek watershed. We are the upstream neighbors of Mission Bay. I strongly support the work of San Diego Audubon Society and their many allies. We are very much among their allies and their work. Their work really focuses on the Rose Creek watershed as well, the primary freshwater tributary of Mission Bay. We work to preserve the habitat and the environment that protects the water quality and the watershed upstream. And they are very much working in the Mission Bay at the end of the watershed there. I strongly encourage you to increase the wetland acreage by removing the channel from Rose Creek to the Anza and shrinking the island and moving those land uses into the regional parkland. Also, please increase wetland acreage. This will increase our carbon sequestration, helping the city meet its community action plan goals and also, climate action plan goals, and also provide the most habitat. And also, please, in the EIR, you should study how sea level rise affects the plan. So I strongly endorse the many allies that San Diego Audubon has organized here. I think I listened to every one of them, and I'm really impressed with the incredible opportunity the city has here. There's not many places in Southern California where you get an opportunity like this in an urbanized area. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Nancy Yuen, followed by Ryan Carlsgott, and then LaBryan. Nancy, you should be able to unmute now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I wanted to actually second a lot of the things that Deborah just said. And one concern that I have is the notion that the golf course and campland need to be preserved. I'm of the opinion that pollution from things like golf courses, the horrible levels of pollution from golf courses is well documented, and it would be much better. There are other golf courses in San Diego that people can go to. You don't have to golf right on the water. So if mitigation cannot be done adequately, then I believe that these uses should not remain. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Ryan Carlsgott, followed by LaBryan, and then Judith Swink. Okay, Ryan, you should be able to unmute now.
Yes, thank you. My name is Ryan Carlsgott. I'm the president of C3, or Citizens Coordinate for Century 3. And we've been a part of the Rewild Mission Bay Coalition. I'll keep my comments quick since I think everyone wants to get on with dinner. One comment that I'd like to make, and I think everyone's in agreement, is that the Nature Interpretive Center should be shifted to the east side of Rose Creek, either on the island or near it. That will help with ecotourism opportunities and public access. And on the issue of public access, I think it has to be made crystal clear in signage and other ways that people are able to access the island. What we don't want is a situation where it seems private and people are deterred from using any public multi-use path around that island. And on that question of that multi-use path, I think it's not clear for many parties whether vehicles will be allowed on that island, or if that's just going to be for bikes and pedestrians. I think we would advocate for having no vehicles and a softer infrastructure on the island, so that when sea level rise happens and the wetlands need to retreat, that can happen on that island. I'll just say a couple more quick things. I think the city needs to outline whether they're doing a hard shoreline or soft shoreline, again, on the issue of sea level rise and managed retreat. And then the last thing I'll say is, it's a question really, is the city is part of the EIR going to be analyzing the greenhouse gas emissions from RV camping in particular as a use? I know a Campland commenter earlier said that he travels 1,500 miles and he knows people who travel from New York and Canada and Maryland. I'm just wondering if the city analyzes those greenhouse gas emissions in terms of this land use map. It seems like they could be significant. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is LeBrian, followed by Judith Swink, and then Irene Ty, and then Nicole Burgess. LeBrian, yeah, you should be able to unmute now. LeBrian?
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Great.
All right. Hello and good evening, everybody. So I just wanted to give I'm gonna keep it short. I'm one of the professional roller skaters here in San Diego. I've been doing it for 26 years. I know that Mr. Dave and also Miss Cynthia had also gave their input and their comments. Yes, I'm gonna cut it short. We need to get straight to the point. We actually do need a spot that's gonna be here for us in San Diego. I've been here 42 years, all my life. And if it wasn't for San Diego and where I actually roller skate, I wouldn't have been on TV and doing the things that I do. So I give much of my props to all of my roller skate family rollers and to the actual city. So if you guys can actually find a spot for us to where, like Miss Cynthia said, find us a spot to where we can actually be there and we're isolated. Well, not really isolated, but at the same time, we can actually just have our fun, because when it really comes down to it, our roller skating is where we relieve our stress. Our stress is from coming from work. We might have something going on in our families. I know everybody has something going on in their families, but at the same time, we get on our 8 wheels and 2 boots and we relieve that stress. And I just wanted to say that it's been a blessing here in San Diego. I'm gonna stay here and I love the city. And if you guys can do something for us, we will definitely, most likely appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Judith Swink, followed by Irene Ty, and then Nicole Burgess. Judith, you should be able to unmute now.
Okay, there we go. I would like to echo and endorse the previous comments regarding the value and importance of the increased wetlands for mitigation of climate change impacts and sea level rise impacts on habitat, but also for helping to cleanse the pollution that comes down Rose Creek from the entire watershed. Wetlands and water quality are highly valued by county-wide population. In 1992, in the lead up to the master plan update, there was a telephone survey done that, hold on for a minute. There was a telephone survey countywide, and one of the asking what the many interests, what people would like to see in the park. And 96.7% of the population believes that preserving and enhancing the natural resources of the park is important. And slightly more than half of the park's users favor taking areas of the park out of active public use and dedicating these areas for natural resource enhancement. I do not believe that those numbers will have reduced in the intervening years. Also from the survey, there is agreement among county residents that the unique water setting of the park should influence land use, and the master plan makes that clear as well. The master plan stresses inclusion of land uses in Mission Bay, which enjoy particular benefits from being located adjacent or near to the water. And pursuant to Isabel Kaye's comments, the wetlands also provide recreational opportunities and benefits, so that should not be discounted. As far as water quality, going back to that, I hope that you will obtain and include results from recent studies of the carbon sequestration offered by eelgrass. Apparently, it's quite substantial. And then finally, I would like to see the EIR to address the human health hazards from the avian fecal matter. There was a study done in, I have the material somewhere. I've been involved in Mission Bay for 30 plus years, but the study confirmed that the primary pollutant, once the sewage overflows were dealt with, is from avian fecal matter. And the question is just what does that, how much does that threaten human health versus human fecal matter? So thank you. I will write these up and submit them in written form too, because I'm not very organized right now. Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Irene Tai, and our final speaker will be Nicole Burgess. Irene, you should be able to unmute now. Irene, it looks like you're unmuted, but I don't hear anything. Irene, I'm trying this again. From my end, it looks like you're unmuted, Irene, but I do not hear you. Well, I am sorry. I think I'm going to go on to Nicole because I'm not hearing anything. And so, Nicole, if you want to go ahead and unmute.
Good morning, Rebecca. Evening, Rebecca. Thank you all. Almost feels like morning. I just want to thank you, city staff, Rebecca, Jordan, and Heidi for staying on here and listening to all our input. My name is Nicole Burgess, and I am a member of the Rewild Coalition, and appreciate all the amazing comments from members. And I'm not going to repeat all of them, but I just want to, some of the notes that I took down were just that biodiversity ecological hotspot. This is an opportunity of a lifetime, and so many people have commented on that, and the habitats of birds and the nature, and Just really taking a moment to really look at the big picture and the big picture of Mission Bay and what it has to offer, and this little bit of paradise that we could have that we can give back to nature. And we can actually have that eco-friendly, eco-development, ecotourism, nature-based planning. I love that word. Those kind of things in this project need to be the vision for this project, for this area. And I think back onto PB has the eco district principles to really create this space that we can all love to enjoy and learn to have. There's no other place in the city of San Diego that we could go into an urban area and have that habitat of wildlife there at our footsteps and to engage in it. And so as we know, nature is our best medicine. When we listen to it, we find the answers. And the answers are there. And I think I just want to just tap in a couple of those, like, look at sea level rise. Look at those fault lines. Look at the GHGs from RRVs. Look at the pesticides that are running off our golf courses. And look at what we can have. I'll take a skate park. I'll take volleyball. I'll take tenting throughout amazing activities that we can have on our parklands. So just really big picture, more wetlands, the wildest, the best, and what we have the opportunity to do. And I look forward to all of you continuing to input and really imagining a place that we could actually go. And I think one big last comment is how we get to this place. We have a new blue, line transit. How do we get there without a car? And can this be the little mecca of the city of San Diego that expands into BB, that becomes this eco-friendly, people-centric place where, you know what? Maybe we just didn't need a car to get there. We could find a bike, we can find a tent and pack it on our bike and get there and really just dive into nature. So thank you again to city staff and for all of you that are still here. Appreciate the time to comment and I look forward to progress.
Thanks much. And, as the slide that we've had up says, you can always send any comments that you have on this scoping process for Anza Natural. You can send any comments to the email address planningsequa@sandiego.gov. And there's also an address where you can mail comments to Jordan Moore. All comments on the notice of preparation, all scoping comments should be received by February 10th, 2022. And with that, I think we're going to end tonight's meeting. Thank you for coming.